just barely about 10 minutes ago, finished Daughter of Darkness, Wielder of Shadows. I gave it 5 stars because it did suck me in immediately. It was very interesting. It's your typical fae heroine, fae hero. And of course, they both think they're monsters. So there's that. So, how does this go? She starts off being enchanted to be human. And she goes off into the woods nearby to look for some game that she can hunt and eat to survive. She runs into Azran, who she doesn't know at the time, but he is the high fae of all the fae and humans. So in her mind, he's supposed to hate humans and he's supposed to kill her and whatnot, all that jazz. None of that happens. He doesn't kill her. He doesn't hate her. But he does question her sword, Natar. Wonders where she got it. She said it was her father's. He looks surprised at that. And she's like, well, you need an answer. Give me some answers. And he's like, maybe back here tomorrow afternoon. But he doesn't tell her where in the forest. So she goes off to meet him. She gets attacked by a dark claw, basically a evil fae bear type creature. And they get to her in time. He has his healer, Moore, heal her. And then basically he gets her to follow them by promising answers to her questions. And this, of course, makes her angry. So she follows them all the way to Averion, the Fae capital, which is where he resides. And she starts getting headaches and everything. Back up. At some point along the way to the capital, they get attacked by rebels. So while the High Fae, Azran, has united the Fae and the humans in peace and harmony, there is a group of loyalists who believe that humans should be crushed underfoot, enslaved, used by the Fae, what have you. Because humans are apparently lesser. Always humans are lesser than Fae. So she ends up getting attacked by 2 Fae wolves, which is dire wolves, but magical, kind of. Anyway, she ends up killing one, and then after that battle is done, she goes back and basically stitches up the wounds on the other wolf, which causes him to follow her around and basically accept her as his new master. Turns out his name is Savage. So they get to Averion. She starts getting headaches, even though she's exploring this palace on her own. Savage is following her. She lets him hang out in the garden. People are weary of him because they've never really seen a Fae wolf before. And then it turns out that she, being in Averion, the enchantment causing her to look human lifted, and she finds out that her mother and father were actually Fae and were actually close to Azran, the High Lord. She finds out her parents are mates, and she also finds out that the leader of the Loyalists, Braern, got friendly with her mother and got her mother to tell him secrets of where the Azran's army would be. And because that was viewed as treachery, Azran unfortunately had to kill Erin, her name is, so her mother. So she's mad at him for that. She's mad at him for a whole bunch of things. She's mad at him throughout the whole freaking book. And at one point, she even thinks in her mind, like, they treat me like I'm some sort of reckless brat. And I was like, you basically are, honey. But most of the book is her coming to learn about her powers and her doing dumb things like going out and not following orders and then having to be saved again and again. So her powers are she can wield darkness and death. And she finds out that she can also use the shadows to cloak her and make her invisible so she can sneak into camps and such. But she decides not to tell anybody that. So eventually Azran reveals to her that they are mates, and when he felt the bond snap into place and everything. And of course, instead of dealing with it, they get called to basically war against Briarn right away. Briarn, who decided to attack the human encampments, thus making the humans hate Fae even more, because Azran's army wouldn't be able to get to them in time to save them. So they head out. Before she can handle her feelings, she uses her powers to basically suppress those emotions. And then she has to release all of her powers so that she can feel again. But she uses those powers to subdue the mating bond between her and Azran because she can't deal with that yet. And I have to remind myself that she's like 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. And obviously emotionally immature. So they go off to battle. The High Lord and all his armies in the capital, the Wood Fae, the Sun Fae, the Moon Fae, and the Water Fae. And they are out battling when they meet Briarn's army. They're battling. They notice these pouches of black powder that they noticed before on one of their other raids. Didn't know what it was. Tested it, couldn't find out what it was used for. It ended up being explosive powder. So, Eleanor is the main female character. This is her name. She was right in the midst of the blast when it happened, but she was only able to survive because her wolf shielded her. So, good job. They killed off Savage. I don't know. I don't really like that they did that. But it probably had to happen at some point. I don't know. So, Eleanor decides when they get back to camp and people are now looking at her like she's some terrible being because Azran also revealed to her that she was part of a prophecy, that she was supposed to unite human and Fae and all the Fae. So people took that and ran with it and were upset that so much death and destruction happened on them because she was with them. So people are now looking at her like she betrayed them personally. So she goes out to decide to finally end Briarn once and for all. And she cloaks herself in the shadows and she goes into his camp and she finds his tent, which is unguarded, and she thinks it's because he's arrogant, which he probably is, but that's not why. Anyway, so he catches her off guard by expecting her, basically, and they proceed to sword fight, and she uses her powers. They're ineffective on him. She doesn't know why. She finds out she's losing, so she calls down the bond to Azran. Azran goes after her with his army. So Cal, his general, takes the army to cause a distraction so that he can sneak in and get her out. He ends up dying in the process by intercepting a sword that was meant for her. He runs in front of it, gets stabbed, and then takes the amulet off of Briarn's neck that was protecting him from their powers and healing him quickly. So, in doing that, he left it open for Eleanor to chop off his head. So Briarn's headless, he's dead. They got the amulet off of him. Azran's dying. She sinks to her knees and finally realizes that she accepts the bond and that she loves him. I kind of hate Faye for this reason, but it makes for a good story sometimes. And then I'm not quite sure what's going on, but she's in between worlds. So she's like in the dead world where she sees the souls of everyone and the soul of Savage running free across the battlefield. And she's kind of also in the physical world. And she like goes to stab herself to join Azran. So it's hard to say what actually happened at the end there. So, but Kel sees this, and the book ends with him running towards them, and it ends with her perspective, Eleanor's perspective, saying that she could sense a slight heartbeat. What that means, we don't know, and probably won't know until the next book. This might be a book that I might have to read again just to try to understand what happened at the end there. But it seemed like she killed herself to try and bring him back to life. I don't know. We can discuss it, figure out what happened.